Greetings, YouTube. It turns out right before I leave for this wedding, the forum post for the Nebula buff is out. So, looks like we are going to talk about this Nebula buff after all today. So, I don't know about you, but I've been kind of nervous about them touching her because she was already really solid. I'm not saying she was the top of the class, but not every champion can be. But she had a lot of utility, great shock damage, solid but not the best regeneration, and really good synergies, particularly with Proxima Midnight. So, we know about Nebula. We're going to scroll straight down. Let's check out the 6-star stats. 37,708, 3,140, 13,000. PI, attack, health, self-repair, shock, power lock. Nebula's mechanics. All right, here we go. Nebula's primary focus revolves around her utilizing her electrically enhanced weapons to inflict shock debuffs and control her opponent's ability to fight back. Amp charges, heavy attacks, and special attacks give her various ways to apply consistent shock debuffs and deal large amounts of energy damage. Special Attack 1 causes her to apply Power Lock and Power Drain debuffs on her opponent, allowing her to attack freely without worry of the opponent unleashing their own counter special attacks. Additionally, Amp charges lower robot opponents' ability accuracy, disabling any defensive abilities they may have in their arsenal. To wrap it all up, Nebula has immunities to several debuffs, and her self-repair regeneration effects make her a difficult target to take down. AKA, we hope she's a decent defender as well. Strengths, robot counter, high energy damage. Weaknesses, shock immunity. Characters with shock immunity will be completely immune to the bulk of Nebula's damage, but there are very few shock immune champions out there. Here's looking at you, Korg. Maybe, is Korg shock immune? Thing's shock immune. That's what I was thinking of. Following stats and abilities based on 565. Abilities, always active. Advanced Robotics provides full immunity to bleed, poison, and shock effects. That is awesome. Self-repair. Nebula begins each fight with 3 indefinite self-repair charges. When she runs out, she will gain another after 10 seconds. Each time the opponent deals more than 110% of their special or their attack rating in a single hit, Nebula will spend 1 charge to gain a self-repair buff, recovering the damage dealt over 5 seconds. If stunned while self-repair is active, it is lost. Self-repair and its charges are immune to ability accuracy reductions. Hey. Shock debuffs. Unless otherwise stated, Nebula's shock debuffs inflict 1,096 energy damage over 6 seconds. Amp charges. While holding block, Nebula builds up 1 amp charge every 0.65 seconds. Each time an immunity prevents a shock effect on Nebula, gain 5 amp charges, max stacks 20. Each amp charge reduces the opponent's ability accuracy by 20% if they are a robot. Perform a well-timed block. Convert all amp charges into shock debuffs on the opponent. That is standard Nebula stuff. Heavy attack, 100% chance to inflict a shock debuff. Developer's note. I try to heavy counter the opponent whenever I can to make sure her signature ability is on at all times and to juice out some extra damage while building my charges. Alright, now we are going to go to the special attacks. Here we go. Special Attack 1. Electric Encore. 100% chance to inflict a Power Lock debuff lasting 1 second per shock debuff on the opponent. 100% chance to inflict Power Drain, depleting 12% of a bar of power per shock debuff on the opponent. Special Attack 2, Shock and Awe. Nebula removes all personal shock effects on the opponent for each shock removed this way. She inflicts 2 shock debuffs, each dealing 1,949.6 energy damage over 3 seconds. Note, Nebula's tried and true huge damage special 2 is still here. Try to sneak in a few heavy attacks before you parry to get some extra shocks on conversion. So, if I remember correctly, and of course I'm going to butcher this, the special 2 used to double the amount of shock charges on the opponent and then refresh the timer. So my goal, especially if I used Proxima Midnight, was to get up to 20, do a combo, do a parry, inflict those 20 shock charges on the opponent, and then fire off a special 2 to refresh the timer and get crazy good damage. So it looks like they've changed it. Again, Nebula removes all personal shock effects on the opponent. For each shock removed this way, she inflicts 2 shock debuffs for each dealing that much damage. And it is a bit worrisome, though maybe it's going to be similar damage, that they're trying to give the community some anticipation of a fight back by saying her true huge damage special 2 is still here, because it sort of feels like on paper maybe it's not. Special attack 3, Galaxy class killer. Nebula gains a weapon overcharge passive lasting 25 seconds. While active, Nebula has a 65% chance to gain an amp charge when making contact with the opponent. Wish it was 100%. While active, any contact with the opponent has a 75% chance to inflict a shock debuff. Well, that's good. Developer's note. Her new ability to gain amp charges while in the weapon overcharge is a great tool for racing up to that 20 charge special 2s in those fights where blocking is a bit too scary. Has blocking been scary to you? I don't know. All right, signature ability, shock debuffs. While the opponent is suffering from at least one shock debuff, Nebula's attack gain plus 25% combat power rate. That's pretty good. Developer's note, extra power means more special attacks. Race to that special 2 or special 3 even faster. All right, synergy bonuses. Let's see about that Proxima Midnight synergy. Self-repairing sufficiency with Nimrod, Ultron Prime, Hulkbuster, Guillotine 2099. Nebula start the fight with one additional self-repair charge. Self-repair recharges 25% faster when charges run out. That's good. Shock recursion with Storm, Guardian, Electro, Black Widow, Deadly Origin. Gaining an amp charge pauses all shock debuffs on the opponent for 0.2 seconds. Rivals with Gamora. I'm not seeing the Proxima Midnight. Nemesis with Star-Lord. Plus 6% attack. Family with Thanos, Gamora health. So the Proxima Midnight synergy, is that still a thing? Am I missing something? Maybe she still has it. I don't know. Recommended masteries. Inequality reduces the opponent's attack rating per debuff. Recovery enhances Nebula's self-repair amount. So here's the deal, YouTube. We just went through a moment with Guillotine where so many people have said, Prof, can you please make a video? And I did, saying that they should just do what they did with the hood and revert Guillotine back to how she was normally before giving us an actual thing that feels like a buff more than a nerf. I don't know. Maybe Nebula's going to be OP. Maybe this is way better than her old self. But I said this at the beginning of the video. She is not one of those champions that desperately needs a buff. In fact, I think if you were to make a list of tech champions specifically that need a buff, Nebula would not be anywhere close to the top of that list for quite some time. So I'm torn how to feel about this, and I really do look forward to seeing your feedback. Are you excited for her? Or do you think with this new mechanic, there's actually a chance she gets worse? We have trust issues now with Kabam. They use the word buff, trying to convince us that no matter what, it's an improvement. But sometimes, whether they mess with synergies or mechanics or utility or critical damage, it feels like a nerf. And this, to me, has some warning signs that it could be the case, but I'm open-minded enough to not declare that's the case, because who knows, when we play with her, we might say, oh, there's no doubt. She's crazy, crazy better now. Those of you who've looked more into this, what do you think in the comments below? Either way, I'm thankful I was able to record this before the wedding, and congratulations to Gary and Tracy on getting married.